I'm Jessica. I'm one of the international admissions and recruitment officers at Carleton University. And maybe even more importantly, I'm also a proud alum of Carleton University, having graduated a few years ago. We don't need to go into exactly which year, but very happy and proud to continue working at Carleton University in my professional life. So today we're going to cover many topics, but if I was to group it into two main themes, the first being why Carleton. So I'll highlight some of the reasons that both I chose Carleton and thousands of students around the world continue to choose Carleton. And then I'm going to transition to talk a little bit more about admission requirements and the application process. All right, so that's what you have to look forward to. And now let's hop in to the first reason that many people consider Carleton to be an excellent study destination, and that is because of our location in the capital city of Canada, which is Ottawa, or as we like to say, Ottawa, because it is such a magnificent city. I know some of you, you've shared where you're from, and you are living in capital cities of your own countries. So you might have an extra appreciation for the value of studying in a capital city. So let's start with a little bit of a geography lesson if you're not familiar with Ottawa. So we are in the province of Ontario, and you might be a little bit more familiar with one of our largest cities being Toronto. So Toronto is approximately 4.5 hours from Ottawa if you're driving or taking the train. You can also take a short flight of about 45 minutes between the two cities. We are also about an hour and a half to 2 hours from Montreal, and we are about 8 hours north of New York City. So hopefully that helps you kind of position us within the country. Ottawa is personally, I think, quite an underrated capital city. So a couple of highlights. We are the second safest large city in North America. So safety, I know, is something that many of your parents and teachers really prioritize, and you yourself as well. So good to know that you're coming to a city that's considered quite safe for its residents and students living there. We also have a really high quality of life. There is priority put on work-life balance. So it means, sure, we work hard, we study hard, but we also put a lot of value on enjoying our time off. And there's so many ways that we do that in Ottawa. There are many dozens of festivals every year, ranging from music to food to culture, etc. So lots of festivals and things to do when you're not studying. We have many professional sports teams from hockey and soccer or football, depending where you are. We also have the Canadian Football League, which is more like American football, basketball, lacrosse. So lots of sports if you're a sports fan. We are also a big cultural hub. So we have 7 of the 9 national museums based here in Ottawa. So again, lots to do when you're not studying, good shopping, world-class restaurants. So in terms of the city, it's quite vibrant, with lots of opportunity too to be in nature with hundreds of kilometers of biking and walking trails. We have national or provincial parks surrounding our city as well. So really easy to get onto the freshwater lakes and rivers, and into the forests for good hiking as well. Something that I personally love to do. So something else before I transition to talking about the campus too is about industry in Ottawa. I think immediately when we consider a capital city, we think, okay, great, government jobs. And that's correct for Ottawa, but we also have really diverse industries outside of the government. So I'll talk about this later, but I'll tease it now that we actually have the largest tech park in all of Canada. We have really strong teaching and research hospitals here based in Ottawa. We have a huge experimental farm in the middle of our city, and we're surrounded by agriculture, lots of farms. So you can see from, agriculture to healthcare to high tech to government, we have really diverse industries here in Ottawa, which means that we have a strong economic outlook. We tend to have low unemployment rates here in Ottawa. And all of this means not only are job prospects after graduation high, but it creates opportunities during your degree for internships and co-ops and volunteer opportunities. So lots to do here in Ottawa, both on the leisure side, the work side, and academics, of course. So now we're going to zoom in a little bit and talk about the Carleton University campus, which I think is quite special and a huge value in terms of thinking about Carleton as a study destination. All right, so we are what's called a self-contained campus. The alternative that you might hear about in your research is an urban campus, so a campus that might be worked throughout a downtown core. We are self-contained, so everything in this border is our Carleton property. We are all located on this one property, from our residence buildings to our academic buildings, athletics, and the medical center. So you can see some highlights here. We are about 15 minutes from the downtown core, so we're not so separated that we're not accessible. We still have good access to downtown. And you can't really see it on this picture, but there are also communities around our campus where you can access easily just by walking to restaurants, coffee shops, the grocery store, some shopping, etc. So we have a great medical center on campus where students have access to medical doctors, dentists, pharmacists, free mental health counseling for all students. Here you can see that we have our residence complex, which I'll talk about later. And so just one little quick highlight here is the Rideau Canal. I don't know if you're familiar, but this is a World UNESCO site. And it does get cold here in Ottawa in the winter. And when that freezes, it becomes the largest ice skating rink in the world. So you can actually skate, if you can believe it, right from our Parliament buildings all the way to the Carleton campus. Anna, I see that you've raised your hand. I hope it's okay, but I'm going to take questions at the end. So if there's something that you need answered right now, pop it in the chat to Nady. Otherwise, please put your question in the Q&A, and I will certainly get to it in a few minutes. Okay, so something you couldn't see in this picture of campus is what's happening underground. Now, we have this very unique feature that every single building that you see here is connected by heated underground tunnels. So that's 5 kilometers of tunnels that connect every single building. So if you wake up in your residence hall in the morning and realize, ooh, there's a snowstorm or it's raining and you spent all morning curling your hair, no problem. You can easily go underground in your t-shirt, pop up in your classroom, never having gone outside. The tunnels are also really great for accessibility. So if you have accessibility needs or you have an unfortunate accident, you've sprained your ankle, then it is much easier to navigate underground as well. All right, so that's just a little bit about our location. Now, of course, you're thinking about your programs and rankings, but I really want you to consider too that you're not just choosing a university, you're choosing a home for at least the next 4 years. So it's really important that you research the city that you're studying at, the style of campus that you're going to be studying at. So hopefully I've given Carleton some justice in terms of describing our location. So next, let's talk about those things, programming, academic merit. So very happy to share that according to the Maclean's Canadian rankings, we are listed as the top 4 comprehensive university in Canada. So we are highly ranked amongst comprehensive universities. And what this means is that we are a school that has programs across the spectrum. So we don't just focus on one area of liberal arts or just engineering, but we have programs from, music to commerce and economics and communications and engineering and many things in between, which I'll highlight in the next slide. But comprehensive also means that we have bachelor programs, master's, and PhD. And although you're likely just looking at the bachelor or undergraduate programs now, studying with students who have masters or pursuing PhDs enhances your access to high levels of research. So it does benefit you even as a first year student. All right, so now let's talk about what our bachelor degree programs look like. In Canada, and certainly at Carleton, what's good to know is that there's lots of flexibility in programs. So we have 26 degrees, but within these degrees, there are majors, concentrations, specializations. So you might be looking at things like double majors, a major and a minor combination, a double major, double minor. There's lots of opportunity for interdisciplinary studies. Okay, so here you can see our 26 degrees. I'll just highlight a few because we're very excited about some new programs that are coming online this year. So Carleton has just introduced a new Bachelor's of Accounting that you can see there. We are the first in Canada to introduce a dedicated Bachelor of Cybersecurity. We have just introduced a new degree in data science, for example. And lots of other great degrees. I wish I had time to go into each, but I just wanted to highlight a few of our new programs this year. Okay, so to kind of help conceptualize this, as I mentioned, we have degrees and then we have the majors under them. So with arts, that's where you'll find about 30 different majors. You'll find the Bachelor of Arts in Psychology, Sociology, Linguistics, etc. But let's look at engineering as our example. So here we have the Bachelor of Engineering, but then inside engineering is where you'll find all the different disciplines that you might be looking for. So you might be looking for aerospace engineering or mechanical engineering, etc. Okay, so that's kind of how it works. 26 degrees, but there are over 100 different programs and majors that you can choose from. So that's where your research will be really important. Here's another example. So computer science. The degree is Bachelor of Computer Science, but then inside computer science, you can choose one of these concentrations. So AI and machine learning, computer game development, algorithms, computer and internet security. So, those are the options. But then you also, within computer science, might look at a minor. Within computer science, a minor in entrepreneurship is really popular. So that's something that you could add on to your Bachelor of Computer Science. Now let's look at commerce as an example. So within commerce, you can choose one, even two of these concentrations. So the Bachelor of Commerce is kind of a holistic, all-inclusive business degree. Well, you'll have the introduction to all of these things: accounting, finance, marketing, entrepreneurship, supply chain management. But if there is one or two of these areas that you would like to concentrate on further, then you can do that too. So you can concentrate on finance in addition to all of the other areas. All right, so hopefully that helps clarify a little bit about how majors and concentrations work. But it's not just about what you study. I think the other thing that I want to highlight is that a degree is not just the courses you take, it's everything that you do in addition to your classes. So that's the research opportunities that you'll have. That's adding co-op, which I'll talk about. Volunteering. So if you are a psychology major, volunteering might be really important if you're thinking about working as a counselor, a therapist in the future, having that experience working with certain populations. So it's all of these things that make up a really rich and robust academic experience. And this will be unique to everybody. You might choose the same program as your friend, but the ways that you choose to enhance your degree might be different and will be unique to you. All right, so we've talked about location, we've talked about academic excellence. Now we're going to transition to talk about co-op and experiential learning. Now, this is something that is so important to your degree. We know that, just having a degree might not be enough to help you find success in your professional career upon graduation. We need to supplement that with as much hands-on learning and experiential learning as possible. So a great way to do that at Carleton is through co-op. So for those of you who might not have been introduced to co-op yet, let me be the first. Co-op is essentially work experience related to what you are studying. Okay. So it can be anywhere from 4 to 16 months of your degree. What's important to know is that this is paid work experience. It is not a volunteer internship. It is actually paid. Um, and here's how it works. So to help you kind of understand the process. Now, these schedules are just examples or samples. It could look different depending on your preferences, with your degree, which employer you're working with. But let's look at the commerce student as an example. So, in your first year, you're just going to study, focus on that transition to university. And then you have that first summer off for vacation, catch up on sleep, maybe visit home. And then you return to school in year two. In year two, in the fall and winter term, you'll continue to study. But if you've applied and opted into co-op, then we will also ask you to take a course called Co-op 1000. This is where we're going to teach you employability skills, how to write a professional resume, how to have a job interview, job search strategies. So once you've completed those courses, then you will start applying for work. Now, you're not on your own. This works in a couple of different ways. So we have staff who are based in many of the programs, and they are networking on your behalf. So they're connecting with employers, they're looking for student jobs and putting them into a portal. So you can go into that portal and filter by whatever your area of interest is and apply to those jobs. What I want to highlight is that this idea of co-op is so embedded in Canadian culture that Canadian employers every year put aside budgets to hire students. So these are student jobs that are funded by these employers. So you're not competing with, adult professionals like myself or your parents who have been in the workforce for many years. Now, the other way you can come to a job is through your own network. So perhaps you have a family member or a family friend who is able to connect you with a job either in Canada or back in your home country. And that's absolutely okay. You bring it forward. We'll do a little bit of investigation. And if it's approved, then you are allowed to pursue that job for your co-op. So it comes to you in a couple of different ways. So then it's up to you. You can start rotating between work, study, work, study. Sometimes students will pursue a double work term, so study, work, work, study. And these blocks are 4 months. So the fall would be September to December, the winter would be January to April, and then May to August. We sometimes see with our engineering or science students that they'll actually pursue a 12-month co-op. So actually taking an entire academic year off to work, which is a fantastic opportunity to really see a full project through before returning to school to graduate. Now, some of you might be looking at the schedule and say, whoa, 5 years? I don't want to take 5 years to graduate. And to you, I would say, what's your rush? You're anxious to graduate, to start working and make money? Well, that's what co-op is. You're doing those things, but within the protection and support of the university. And then once you've graduated, you have all of this great work experience. You've developed your professional network, and perhaps you've gained some insight into the type of work or type of employers that you want to pursue or that you don't want to pursue upon graduation. So it allows you that clarity. So lots of great benefits to co-op. So just to highlight, we have hundreds, maybe thousands of employer partners around Canada and even some international. So you can see here, we've had students working with Amazon and Microsoft and Shopify, which was actually founded in Ottawa, and Deloitte, KPMG. So lots of great, multinational companies. And remember when I talked to you about that tech park, that Ottawa has the largest tech park in all of Canada. So it's called Canada North, where there are about 700 tech employers based on this one site. Now, within this tech park, these folks are hiring sometimes up to 1,000 co-op students every summer. So this is a huge source of student hiring every summer. So we're very fortunate to have these partners based right here in Ottawa. I know it's a little bit small, but you can see some really big names there. Amazon has an office there, Microsoft, Ford, Cisco, and many other smaller startups if you wanted that experience as well. All right, so that's a lot about co-op, but something else I want to highlight in terms of work is a very special program that we have just intended for international students. So it's the International Student Employment Program, ISEP. So this was created last year with the recognition that, some international students come to Canada with no previous work experience. So this might be when you apply for co-op kind of your first time entering the world of work. There also might just be some differences like office etiquette, for example, between your home country and Canada. So what this program does is it enrolls you in these workshops that help educate you on the world of work in Canada. What a Canadian employer might be looking for in your resume. And then the best is that we have employer partners who get special funding for this program to hire international students for limited hours through the academic year. Okay, so you're not taking a break from studying like with co-op. You are working part-time hours with your classes. So you're not competing up against other, Canadians. It's purely for international students. And you can enroll in the ISEP program in your first year, within your first week of getting to Carleton. So this is a really unique but important program for international students to be introduced to the world of work in Canada. All right, so experiential learning, there's so much more I could say about this. It's so much more than just co-op and work. It's happening inside the classrooms, in your field work, in your labs, in how you're interacting with your research. So lots more to know about that, but I do have to move on. And now I want to talk about housing. Housing is a huge consideration when you're thinking about moving from your country, which could be literally across the globe. The idea of how do I find an apartment all the way from where I'm living? Well, we hope to take that stress off you by offering you on-campus housing. Okay. So these are just kind of some highlights of our campus residence areas. So, inside this area, you will find the, world-class cafeteria. There's a smaller gym, although we do have the huge fitness center for all students, but you do have access to a gym in that area and lots of really great supports. So this is where you're going to be connected with upper year students who kind of live amongst you and go through intense training to be able to support first year students as they transition into their first year. But they're also tasked with making sure that you have some fun. They might organize events, pizza nights, or museum visits, or coffee chats with professors. So they're there to make sure that you're interacting and meeting each other, but also that you're safe and they're able to make referrals if you need additional supports. They're not there to be your parents. They will not wake you up for class in the morning or make sure you're eating your vegetables, but they are there to offer you support. And then, of course, we have 24/7 professional staff who are available as well. So safety definitely is very well thought through in the residence area. So a couple of highlights that are important to know, and these are updates. So one, you are eligible to apply to stay in residence for all 12 months. So most students or some schools will limit you to kind of the academic year of September to April. If you don't plan on going home for the summer, you want to stay in Ottawa, you can opt to stay for the summer. Now, another great update, actually, even since this slide was made, is that we will guarantee you room in residence for all 4 years of your degree. So it's not mandatory, but if you want to stay on campus for the convenience of it all, you can do that for all 4 years of your degree. Now, what you are guaranteed is a double room. We do have private rooms, but we don't have enough for everyone. So that's more of a lottery system, but we will guarantee you, if you're coming directly from high school, a double room. There is a very sophisticated process of how we do our roommate matching. And in fact, it's in your hands. There's a process of creating a profile and then allowing you to look through other students' profiles and inviting them for chats. You can meet each other virtually or however you want to arrange it before asking or deciding if you want to be roommates. Okay, so that's really great. Most rooms will share a bathroom just between two rooms. So two people, a bathroom, two people. And you are empowered when you are looking for roommates through that profile system to match with the four people. Okay, it's a pod essentially. So that's how it works for most of our rooms. So very exciting. And now to the meal plan. Um, your residence fees will include the meal plan. And this is an all access meal plan. So, you are not limited to certain hours in which you have to eat breakfast, lunch, and dinner. It's open throughout the day. Everything is very clearly labeled. We even have an entire area that is dedicated to removing all of the major food restrictions. So if you do eat vegetarian, halal, you have a gluten intolerance, or you're celiac or peanut allergy, trust that those accommodations are managed very safely within our cafeteria. And in fact, you even have access to a professional dietitian if you did have questions or concerns, or you just wanted some advice about eating healthy when you're on your own for the first time. Okay, so that's a kind of a whirlwind explanation of our residence system. So
I'm so sorry to interrupt, but
sure.
we're seeing so the box actually appeared again, and now there is an additional box.
Oh my goodness. Okay.
Um, so it's the
Sorry
right
about
side of
this,
the screen.
folks. Um, Truthfully, Nady, I can't find with how I have things set up and shared right now to turn it off. So oh, I see. Okay, here we go. Okay, I have turned the captions off.
Perfect. It worked. Thank you so
Okay,
much.
no problem. You're seeing our troubleshooting in real time here, folks. Okay, so now I'm going to transition to talking about supports and student life. So, kind of what happens outside of the pure academic side of university. It's not all just lectures and classes and labs and studying. There's so much more to the university experience. Because we know that you are a fully formed human and we want to take care of you outside of just your academics. So, a couple of things to highlight, and this is just a sample. So, I'm revisiting the fact that we have 24/7 on campus security. And they have great systems where if you're studying late at night in the library and you want somebody to walk you back to your car or to your residence room, they have a system where somebody will meet you and do that walk with you. Or you're studying late in the lab and you want someone just to pop in to check on you and make sure everything's okay. That's also a service that they offer. I mentioned we have free mental health counseling for all of our students, so that's something you could take advantage of. We have mentorship programs, so both offered specifically to international students, but also university-wide, where you'll be paired with an upper year student and they'll meet with you weekly, every week for the first 6 weeks of your first year to check in. And you can ask them anything about, taking transit or navigating the Carleton campus or, their advice for how to take good study notes. So that's a really great program. You see a cute little dog there. We have, I think now we're up to 20 therapy dogs on campus. So if you are a pet person and you're missing your furry friends at home, we know sometimes just a little pet or a cuddle with a dog can do a lot to kind of ease anxiety and minimize your stress. So the dogs, and listen carefully, every week hold office hours. So you'll see your professor for office hours and then a therapy dog for office hours if you so choose. And then the last office I want to highlight here is the Go ISSO. So Global Opportunities in our International Student Services Office. These are the folks who are your go-to for questions as international students. So they have immigration advisors. So if you have questions or concerns about your study permit applications and visas, They're there to support you. They will also organize your international student orientation when you arrive. They facilitate some training before you come so that you feel ready and prepared to start life here in Canada. And then throughout the year, they organize things like conversation cafes, if you just want extra practice with your English, and lots of connection opportunities to get to know kind of life in Canada. Ice skating, for example, is something that they do every year. How to dress for winter, which I know many of you are coming from warm climates and might have some concerns about that. So to peer supports, there are also additional academic supports that I haven't really talked about that happen kind of outside of your classrooms, apart from your professors, for example. So there are something called the peer assisted study sessions where upper year students offer workshops and mentoring in some of the more classical difficult courses. So we might see those in statistics and physics and some of the math courses. Lots of the different faculties will also have their own academic support. So we have the Science Student Success Center. They offer mentoring, connections to industry, and other ways to connect with the staff and gain support there. So lots and lots of different opportunities to seek out academic supports as well. And then I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about student life, because as I mentioned, university is not just about the time spent in the library and classroom. It is also really fun. We have a really, really dynamic student population who love to support our sporting events. We are a big school for athletics as well. So even if you aren't an athlete, it is really fun to be a fan. There are lots of opportunities through orientation to get involved. There are over, I think, 200 student clubs that range from things like, the International Relations Club. There's lots of cultural-based clubs, for example, like the South Asian Interests at Carleton Club, Mosaic. We have the Outdoor Club, Photography Club. I recently learned that there's a adult hide and seek club. So, from the fun and silly to the more serious academic based and cultural clubs as well. So lots to do to stay connected and have fun outside of the classroom. Okay, so this has been a lot of information, but I hope I have garnered some excitement about Carleton University. I am going to transition now to talk more about um, scholarships and some of the academic requirements and admission requirements at this point. All right. So, scholarships, though, still fall in the realm of why Carleton. We have some really rewarding scholarships for students. So we have kind of three types of scholarships that I'll highlight today. So the first is our automatic and renewable entrance scholarships. So these start at the equivalent of 80%. Now, this might reflect differently depending on the curriculum you study, but based on kind of the Canadian system, 80%. This will guarantee you $1,000 every year if you maintain good grades for 4 years. And then that increases up to $4,000 a year, so $16,000 through your degree, if you are a very high achieving student at 95 plus. So nothing to do to apply for this, no additional application, just have decent grades and apply to your program. We also have the President's Welcome Award for international students. So this is a one-time entrance scholarship ranging from $2,000 to $5,000. So this actually starts at about 75% of your admission average, up to, of course, the high achieving 95 plus. So that range is 2,000 to 5,000. And that can be stacked on top of this scholarship. So you could be looking at $1,000 to $9,000 if you're awarded both. And again, no extra application for that one. The third application is a competitive scholarship. So this will require an application where you minimally have to have 90% average in your 12th year or however we're evaluating you. Plus, we'll ask you to demonstrate your extracurriculars, volunteer work, anything extra in that application. So that application is due at the beginning of March. So don't miss that if that is something that you think you would be competitive for. Okay, so just a little bit of a roundup of why Carleton. So one, we talked about location, that capital advantage of 1,800 knowledge-based businesses, so great diverse industries, a beautiful, really culturally vibrant city to study in. We have excellent education. We have, really high academic rigor with a very strong ranking of #4 comprehensive university in Canada with really interesting um, and interdisciplinary program options. We have the fastest growing co-op program in Canada, which means more opportunities for you to gain valuable work experience before you graduate. We have guaranteed residence on campus, so no need to worry about where you're going to live. And as I just talked about, we have very generous scholarships to offer you to reward you for your hard work in high school. Now, you're excited, you're thinking, how do I apply? Let me tell you. Now, it wasn't a mistake that we did this session today. Today, on September 18th, applications are open. You can apply today, tonight, if you so choose. And here's how you do it. The application is online, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. We're going to talk about what documents you need, and then the process of monitoring your application and viewing your decision. So 4 steps, 1, 2, 3, 4, easy peasy, right? All right, so ways that you can apply. We have a direct application. It is through the Carleton 360 portal, is what we call it. This is $100. You can choose up to 2 programs. And this is recommended if you are only applying to Carleton. You are just singly minded, focus on Carleton, and that's what you want to do. Then this is a great option. But more commonly, students will apply through the OUAC. So this is kind of similar to like a common application for universities based in the province of Ontario. So if you are applying to more than one university in Ontario, this is the more economical option for you. And I know we have a Canadian here as well. You are required to apply through OUAC. And the direct application is not an option for Canadians. So this is where most students will apply. So just to clarify that a little bit, if you're like, oh, which one should I use? If you're a Canadian living abroad, if you are completing an Ontario curriculum, perhaps, or applying to several universities in Ontario, use the OUAC. If you are a true international student, then apply through the direct application if you are only doing one application. Now, what documents will we require? For most students, we are looking at your final year of high school in order to conduct our evaluation. Now, this will be different for all curriculums, and I know we have quite the mix of curriculums here today, so I can't go into each one, but expect to upload your transcripts from your high school, all right? Now, let me just go through a few of the most popular curricula. If you are doing IB, then you can apply with your AS and your AS, that's the wrong one, with your predicted results, sorry, and we will evaluate based on that. If you are doing your A levels, you can submit your O levels or your AS plus your predicted, we can use that. If you are just doing your own national curriculum, then giving us your high school transcript will work, and we will make decisions usually using your like term 1 grade 12 results, if that is the case in your curriculum. So as you can see, it kind of depends on the curriculum. If you want further clarification, I will share my contact information and I can kind of speak to you offline about your situation. But transcripts we will always require. We will make or attempt to make a conditional offer of admission based on your in-progress grades. So whether that is your predicted results or your term 1 results, we aren't going to make you wait until you get your final grades. That's too late. So with your in progress grades, we will say, theoretically, you are admitted with your grades of X on the condition that you maintain the grade of Y when we get your final results. So hopefully that's clear, but we will eventually need those final results. Now, for some of you, we might require proof of English language proficiency, and this too will depend on where you're applying from and what curriculum that you're completing. All right. Okay, so general requirements. Again, I can't go into too much detail because this will be different based on what program you're applying for. But if you scan this QR code, if you have your phones out, then you can access our website where you can navigate to the program page and this tool that you see here that allows you to select your international education curricula, if you can find it. There is one too that just says general international curriculum and your program of interest. So if you select engineering, then the requirements will populate for engineering, different from commerce or arts or communications. Okay. So what you're going to want to focus on is grades. For most programs, we are only looking at your final year results. We are typically not looking at any personal statements or essays, no letters of reference or recommendation, no other entrance exams like the SAT. It is purely your grades. Now, there are some programs that do have something additional, like our architecture program has a portfolio, industrial design has a portfolio, music will have an audition. So do be aware of some of those specialized programs. In each program, we will have prerequisite requirements. So pay attention that you're taking the correct courses in your final year. So that could look like for science or health sciences, we're looking for math and 2 sciences. For computer science, we're looking for math. For engineering, we're looking for math, physics, and chemistry. Okay, so you kind of get the clue of what I'm alluding to there. So just be aware that you're taking the right classes for the program that you hope to apply for. Okay, so just a little bit more about the English requirement. So we do accept, most of the common tests, IELTS, TOEFL, we are accepting Duolingo. Now you can find all of the details about our required score results for those on our website. So again, that QR code is there. And otherwise, if you're studying in an international curriculum like A-levels, IB, then or CBSE, so there are some others that we can waive based on the number of years you've studied in that international curriculum. Okay, so pay attention to that website and make sure that you meet those criteria for English language proficiency if you aren't a native English speaker. Now, deadlines. As I mentioned, applications are open. Apply today. But the deadline to apply isn't until April 1st. So you do have a lot of time, but I encourage you to apply sooner rather than later because we do rolling offers for most programs. Anything that has an early deadline here, we're not rolling. Those decisions likely won't come until the spring. However, all other programs are rolling. So once we have the documents we require, you could have a decision within 4 weeks, depending on when you apply. Okay, so the earlier, the better. And then once you have a decision and you choose to accept, hopefully, then you can get the process rolling for your study permit application and you're not worried and stressed about that through your summer before applying for or starting university. All right. So let's just look at that deadline again. So once you have a decision, again, the sooner the better, you will get an offer package and that will look like this. It'll include valuable information like what program were you admitted to, if you have guaranteed residence, and what scholarships you've been awarded. And then this is kind of really in the future from where we are now, but just to give you an idea then. So you'll accept your offer. The deadline to do that is usually by May. We deal with residents in the June timeframe. You're registering for classes in July. August, you're paying your fees, getting your tuition all organized. And then September is go time when you start your program. So we're talking September 2026, if you can believe it. Um, so just to kind of give you a picture of what that looks like. All right, again, I want to acknowledge this has been a lot of information. There'll be lots of opportunities to touch base again, throughout the coming months. So don't stress out. You'll hear all of this again, probably. But if you want to start asking questions, I've talked a lot about, high level things about the university, but if you're interested to know more about the student experience, maybe you want to know about what the food is like in Ottawa or what students do for fun. We have this great program. We work with a number of student ambassadors who are international students coming from, many different programs at Carleton. And through this program, you can connect with them online. So if you scan that QR code, it'll take you to the website where you can filter and search students by country, by program, and you can message with them directly. They also maintain a pretty cool blog of the things that they're doing throughout the day, or the weeks, so you can follow along and get a better sense of a day in the life of a Carleton student studying in Ottawa. So I'm just going to leave that up there for one more second because I really hope that you interact with our students. They're really fantastic and all are doing awesome research and work experience and just really embracing Canadian culture. So it's fun to watch. Okay, so another QR code. I'm throwing a lot of things at you. I've shown you this one before, but I'm just putting it up again because this will link you to our website. So if you want to cruise through our program offerings and other resources, this is the main page for you. Okay, carleton.ca/international. All right, I've got two more QR codes coming for you, so get your phones ready. Explore the campus. I know it's really difficult being an international student trying to decide where the heck you want to study, if it's in Canada or even somewhere else in the world. Now, it might be difficult for you to come here and meet me in person and do a tour. So the next best thing is this virtual campus tour where you can virtually, through your computer screen, walk around campus, see some of our buildings, see residents, other important areas of campus. And there's also one for Ottawa too that highlights 10 of the best spots here in Ottawa. So please, I hope you take a second to look at that. And last, I promise, we are hosting a virtual open house on November 29th. This is our biggest virtual event of the year. So I believe you are now all in our system. You will get an invitation to this, but if you are so keen, you can register now. But basically, we will go into more depth of a lot of the things I talked about here today. I'm going to be joined by all of my colleagues who travel all around the world. Perhaps you've even met them while they've been on the road. And we'll just engage more, answer your questions, and highlight some of the best Carleton has to offer. So please consider attending our virtual open house. And now I will share my contact information. If I don't get to your questions today, I realize, geez, I've been talking a long time, then email me directly, jessica.morrow@carleton.ca. That goes directly to me, not to a robot. A robot has not taken my job yet. So I'm happy to interact or connect you with the recruiter who does work in your region. Okay. I am going to stop sharing now and take a moment to look at our Q&A. So I think for ease, I will work through these as quickly as I can and answer them orally, okay? So, Pierre, where would I be able to switch to attend the nursing program? So, okay, nursing, for those of you interested, I didn't highlight this, but we do have a very new, very exciting nursing program here at Carleton. There are limited spots for international students, so it's not impossible for international students to apply, but just know that there is limited enrollment. But for Canadian, I don't think that there are limits on which province you have your PR status. But what's important is that you have your PR status. So if you want to engage more on that question, then please reach out directly. But I think it's just as simple as that. Okay, next. Um, there's a question where I'm asked, how did I fund my college? However, I'm just a senior high school. I'm not sure which application, Louise, you're referring to. I don't recall that question from the Carleton application. I'm not sure if you're applying through an agent or a different application. So unfortunately, I can't really help you on that. But if you want to email me directly, maybe screenshot what you're seeing and I can help you navigate that because that is a peculiar question for you to be seeing. Okay. Um, what else? Mm. Okay, so I want to apply for a transfer. So if we have any students who are not currently in high school, but they're looking to transfer from one university to Carleton University, then that's absolutely possible. The process that I explained was really targeted to high school students. Your process to apply is actually very similar. Instead of just submitting your high school transcript, we would also be looking at your university or post-secondary transcript. In fact, that's the real basis of admission, your CGPA from university. Unfortunately, what I should note, Ronald, is that transfer students are not eligible for scholarships and guaranteed residence. Those are reserved for high school applicants. But you should be able to select cybersecurity on the application regularly as any other student. So if you have any questions or trouble with that, certainly follow up. Um, okay. Hope, yeah, BBC should make you eligible for some scholarships. So if you do navigate to our scholarship page online, then we do list, I think, the GCE results required for scholarship as well. So I think CC is the minimum amount, and then it will increase from there. So with your grades there, you should be eligible. Okay, for work, do you also continue to study and live in Carleton, or do you have to find your own accommodations? Okay, thank you for asking this question because I didn't really clarify this part. So when you are doing co-op, what's important to know is that you are not studying. You are taking a break from your studies and working full time while earning a salary. So in that time, you are also not paying tuition. However, you are still a registered student. So you can still live in residence if you are living in residence. You don't have to move out for that month or 4 months, I mean. That's if you're working in Ottawa. If you are taking a co-op in a different city within Canada or somewhere internationally, then that would obviously change. You wouldn't want to be paying for residence if you're not actually living there. Can international students co-op part-time? So co-ops aren't part-time. They are full-time employment. So you truly are taking that break from studies and working full-time. Okay. Um, Dorish from Mauritius. Um, Okay, so this is a bit difficult to go through in terms of nominating an agent. So if anybody is using an agent or somebody who's assisting them with their application, on the Carleton application, you can indicate if you are working with an agent. We do have a number of different partners that we work with, so those will be listed there. There's a separate process in your Carleton 360 portal where you can complete a third-party authorization. All right, so it's pretty clear it's hard when you don't have an account yet, but it should be obvious when you do log in that you will see on the left-hand menu, third-party authorization. And this is where you can authorize a parent, an agent, a counselor to have access to your information, which will allow me to give them updates on your application process as well. So if you don't do that, based on our privacy laws here in Canada, I can only speak directly to the applicant and nobody else. So you have to do that third-party authorization. Hope I answered your question there. Um, how fast does Carleton answer to applications? So it will depend on the time of year. If you're applying, or end of September, early October, probably much faster than if you're applying in January or February. Our aim for high school students is to process applications within 4 weeks. So that would likely be the longest you would wait, but it could be much faster as well. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, so good question, Nora, about the food plan. If you do live off campus, which you absolutely are allowed to do, you can still pay to opt into the meal plan. Yes, it's a great option too. Okay. So there are no scholarships if you begin in winter. Scholarships are exclusively for students who start in the fall session, so starting in September. Okay. Um, So the deadline to apply, Ronald, for as a transfer student is the same as all other programs, so that'll be April 1st, other than the special programs, but cybersecurity would fall within the normal April 1st deadline. Um, there are no scholarships right now for students who are transferring from one post-secondary to the next, only for high school applicants. There is a separate application for the Prestige Scholarship, and it is open to international students. So that is accessible on our scholarship page. You can see the application there and complete it. And international and domestic students are considered equally for that scholarship. It's not a separate application for international students. Are the programs flexible in terms of choosing and changing majors? In some ways, yes. So when you apply, you typically apply into a degree. So it could be Bachelor's of Engineering, Bachelor of Arts, and you can indicate a major in most cases. But let's say you're a Bachelor of Arts or Science applicant and you aren't sure what you want your major to be yet. You can apply as undeclared, and that doesn't lock you into a major. In your first year, you can take a spattering of different courses to help kind of clarify for you what you want to study and then declare that major for second year. Alternatively, if you apply into a major and after your first year decide you're not really happy with it or you've discovered a new passion, then you typically can change your major with the support of your academic advisor. People do change programs as well. There are some caveats to that. You might have to have a certain GPA average in order to qualify for that transfer. But absolutely, it is not our intention to lock you into a program that you are not enjoying or aren't succeeding in if you feel like you can do better in something else. So we do try to support you in that as best we can. Okay. Um, So for the application fee, there is no fee exemption. That is a standard application fee for all students. Gaps between your high school and applying to Carleton are not an issue. That doesn't affect your application negatively in any way. With a gap, we will likely ask you for an indicator of what you've been up to. And that's just to ensure that you haven't pursued any other post-secondary studies, because if you have, then that becomes the basis of admission. We will always look at your highest level of education. So if you attempted post-secondary or university, you would have to declare that. But otherwise, a gap is a non-issue. Not uncommon, actually. Okay, so we do not, we can offer some supports with the study permit application process, but it's basically just, answering questions. We will hold some webinars when it gets closer to that time in the process, but we will not complete the application with you or for you. So if you are looking for help, many students will look to an authorized representative or a lawyer or work with an agency who has someone authorized to support you in that process. We just don't have the capacity to work that closely with each and every applicant, but we do have a ton of resources online. If you look at our Go ISSO website, then you can find lots of resources there. And throughout the year, if you are an applicant to Carleton, we will send you that information as well. That's another benefit of applying early is that you will now be on the mailing list. So anything that we have in terms of resources or events, you will get that throughout the year. Okay, I'm conscious of the time, but I'll continue to answer questions as we go. So you're welcome to stay if you're interested in the answers. But I know that we're at the hour, so if you have to go, absolutely go for it. And follow up with me by email. I will just add my email here in the chat again, in case you didn't write it down. Carleton.ca. Make sure that's correct. Okay, yeah, so feel free to email me if you do have to go. All right, but I'll keep going for now. Um, most of the social sciences you will find under the Bachelor of Arts. That's where you'll find our history, our geography, the psychology, sociology, languages. So that's all under the BA, Bachelor of Arts. So that would be a good spot for you to start if you're looking at the social sciences. Parth, we do not offer needs-based scholarships. All of our scholarships are merit-based for international students. So that might be different for any PR or Canadian student applicant, but for international students, they are merit-based. Okay, I have just reading Jana's message here. Okay. So Jana, unfortunately, the idea of a fresh start isn't something that we can accommodate. Anytime a student has pursued any post-secondary studies, that becomes their basis of admission. In the application, you will see it clearly asked, have you pursued post-secondary studies? And you have to indicate yes or no. And you have to declare that that is correct information. Because if you omit that information and we see later that you have studied post-secondary, that could compromise your offer of admission because you weren't truthful and you declared otherwise. So unfortunately, we can't pretend like it didn't happen. Okay. Sorry, doing my best to work through here. We're aligned with that subject. Medical programs. So, yeah, I think I understand this question, but Louise, correct me if I'm wrong. So in some or some high schools, you may have chosen a stream, like you might be in a science stream or a commerce stream or medical. We don't hold you to that. So you might have been in a stream related to to commerce, for example, but if you have the required courses to apply to health sciences or to the sciences, you are absolutely eligible to apply. As long as you have, in that case, for science or health sciences, the math and two sciences, and meet whatever it is, the GPA requirement that we have set. Okay. Something else I haven't mentioned, but I feel like we're on topic. Carleton is quite generous in that if you apply for a program and you don't meet the GPA requirement, or even if you don't have the specific prerequisite that we're asking for that program, but you are still a good student and you're eligible for another program, we will make an alternate offer. So it's rarely just a no, refused. If you are eligible for another program, we will endeavor to make you an alternate offer. So just a hot tip there. Okay. I live with my mom. I need permission from both parents to study in Canada. Good question. It depends on your age, perhaps, but typically students, when they are applying to post-secondary studies in Canada, don't need a co-signer or an authorization from a parent. You are applying on your own merits. So that shouldn't be an issue. But if you want further clarification on that, that's a great question to follow up with, just so that we don't get into your personal family details in this public forum. If you apply. So if you apply for a January intake, there is 0% chance that you'll be eligible for scholarships. They are only awarded to students who start in September, if scholarships are a make or break for you. The other thing I'll say about a January start is, so I mentioned There's no guaranteed residence. So although you may still apply for residence, it's not guaranteed. No scholarships. And the big kind of most helpful and most fun orientation week happens in September. There are orientations in January, but to a much smaller scale. Um, so that's something to consider. And if you are coming from a warm climate country, landing in Canada, in Ottawa, in the middle of January can be a bit of a shock to the system. So it is a nicer transition, I will admit, to come in September. But I know everyone's life and their cycles look a little bit differently. So January might be the better option for you. But just know that there are some sacrifices in terms of benefits when coming in January. But and also, I will add, not all programs admit for January as well. So that's something to be aware of. Um, Transfer students. Ronald, so there's not a different portal for transfer students. It's the same portal. You are still actually eligible if you are applying to multiple universities in Canada, in Ottawa, in Ontario, to use the OUAC as well. So OUAC or the direct application, whichever one works best for you. And it's the same portal as a high school applicant. No, co-op does not interfere with research opportunities. Lots of the research opportunities are happening kind of throughout your academic courses. Many of programs, say on the science and the STEM side of things, will have labs associated with them. And even in the social sciences and other programs, there will be research opportunities connected to your academics, and then opportunities for volunteer and sometimes paid research opportunities with your professors as well. So you can do that on top of your co-op. Absolutely. Okay, so let's talk about medicine for a second. I've seen it pop up a couple of times. So in Canada, uh, medicine is not a direct entry program, as you may be familiar. Similar to like in the US, you kind of have to pursue a pre-med program. But that pre-med program, a bachelor's degree, can be in anything. So it could be in the sciences or health sciences. Those are great options. But technically, it could also be in the social sciences or any other field, journalism, music. There's no limit. Um, what you'll want to focus on is earning really good grades. You probably will want to supplement with some science courses as well as some of your electives if you're not in a science program. So there's really no limits. Now, if you are thinking about medicine as your long-term plan, certainly studying your undergrad in Canada is a great option. As an international student, it can be quite difficult to get into medical school in Canada. Spaces are typically limited for international students, prioritizing Canadian applicants. But first you have to do that undergrad. So whether that's done in Canada and then you're pursuing medical school somewhere else, or waiting until you are a permanent resident in Canada or citizen before pursuing medical school, that's a conversation to have once you kind of start that long-term planning. Can it be accepted if you don't get the required score for non-English speaking students? Okay, so let me speak quickly about that option. So if you're coming from a non-English speaking country, you're not a native English speaker, and you don't score the required result on your IELTS or TOEFL or Duolingo or whatever it is you write, let's say, we do have some options. So you can be considered for admission with an English condition. So if you are scoring a little bit lower, not too low, we do have a window. You could be placed in English classes. So admitted to your academic programs, and then depending if you are in level 1, 2, or 3, then you might be required to do 9 hours of English, 6 hours of English, or 3 hours of English a week in conjunction with a certain percentage of your academic classes. So hopefully that makes sense, but only to highlight that there is a pathway if you don't score the required result that we're asking for direct admission. So we don't have like a pathway or an English language center. We integrate the English upgrade within your academic courses. Okay. So if you're applying today, we are looking towards September 2026. You will get your scholarship decision when you get that offer. So you'll have that information as you make your decision whether or not to accept Carleton's offer as you research other institutions. But yeah, we're looking at September 2026, unless you are looking at one of our limited offerings for January, knowing everything I have shared with you today. Okay, so neuroscience. I do not believe science is offered for January, but I can check quickly. Carleton, January admission. Bear with me for 1 second here, folks. So no, science is not an option for January start. So for January, we're looking at anything in the Bachelor of Arts, Cognitive Science, Commerce, Communications, Economics, and Journalism. So those are the programs that have openings for this January 2026. So when it comes to orientation, that is, you'll get information about that once you've accepted your offer and registered for classes. So orientation, the student experience office will reach out to students. The International Student Services office will reach out to students with that information. And then through that first week of orientation, we will have club days where all of the clubs come out and present themselves kind of in a fair format where you can speak to them, get to know a little bit about what they represent, and sign up if you so choose. So Hope, our interesting question. Our English policy is currently being evaluated, and we're expecting an update as early as next week, I think. So stand by for an answer on that one, okay? But if you are doing A levels, GCEs, you've been there for 3 years, likely you would get your English language requirement met. But I don't want to say anything formally until we've seen your documents. So similarly to the question about having studied 13 years at a British school, even if you don't have an English speaking passport, likely it would be waived. But again, we have to look at your transcript. We have to do our due diligence to look at the school and make sure that they're accredited and are in fact teaching in the English medium. So I can't say with certainty here, but it is certainly something that we would evaluate. Okay, so I've answered a lot of questions. I think I've done most of them. Um, if I've missed you, I apologize. But you have my email, and I encourage you stay in touch. Get in touch with our students if you have questions that is more like student life stuff. Anything academic based, admission requirements, English language proficiency, please email me directly. I'm so happy to help you. And join us at our open house because we will dive into all of these issues too in more detail. So I think I'm gonna, yeah.
Jessica, there is one question about IELTS or TOEFL. Can students apply for 1 year to the language before they?
If I have no IELTS and TOEFL, can I apply? Okay, great. Okay, I'll clarify this question and then I will give you your time back. So, no, simply, we need a test of some sort. You cannot apply with no test if we require it. Like, so if it's not waived in other ways, like with your curriculum or your school, if we've asked for a test, then we need a test. Because like I mentioned, we don't have that process of like an English language center. We need to be able to place you. So submit a test. And then if you don't meet the standard of say 6.5 IELTS and you're a bit lower within that threshold for a condition, then we know how to place you. Okay, so do the test. It's good to do anyways because you will likely be asked to submit a test as part of your study permit application anyways. So it's good practice to prepare for that. Okay, I see one more question coming in. Let me look. Prompts been released yet? I'm not sure what essay prompts you are asking about. Because as I mentioned, most programs don't have any essay requirements. Admission is based purely on your academic merit. There could be some essay prompts for specific programs that you might be looking at. So if you want to follow up with us through international@carleton.ca, then we can, provide more details about those supplemental applications. But for most programs, there is no required essay. Believe it or not, just your grades. Okay, I'm going to cut us off there. Thank you so much for your questions. Those were so fantastic. Tells me that you are being really serious about your research and thoughtful about what your university experience will look like. And that gets me really excited. So thank you for joining. Stay in touch, and I hope to see you on November 29th at our virtual open house. Have a nice morning, afternoon, or evening, wherever you are in the world. Bye.